Good times today to you all. In this video I will show you the process of creating my recent painting from start to finish. This is a pretty significant job for me in content and scale. I want to think that it most fully shows my development as an artist, reflects the progress in the ability to choose plots, in the technique of performance and composition. At the moment, this is my favorite work, which I am really proud of. The canvas is 80 cm high and 130 wide. This is the largest size I worked on so far. I wanted not to limit myself in space, as the idea seemed to me promising. Thanks to this, I could depict life-size human figures. I use a black primer, as the picture will be mostly in dark colors. In this way, I can save some oil paint, and random, unpainted areas will not be so noticeable. I actually made 2 layers of acrylic gesso because I don't know how to glue the fabric so that it doesn't sag. And should I even do this? I think 2 layers should work just fine. I even looked at the canvas through the light of the window, and carefully patched up each hole. Now I will sketch out the forms with acrylic paints because they dry faster. I need to create a light background for the areas that will be most bright, because I plan to work in thin translucent layers, and what will shine through should have correct light value. Shoulder, forehead. Soon we will see how the composition begins to emerge from the void. Like garbage accumulated all winter under the snow emerge when spring comes. To better distinguish between shapes, you can use a color slightly different from the primer, but still consistent with the light level. To do this, mix the acrylic primer with a drop of black acrylic paint and mix thoroughly. You can do this since they have a common water base and drying time on the surface. With this substance, it is convenient to sketch where everything should be located. Just remember not to dip the same brush into a jar with a clean primer, otherwise it will become dirty. With the thin brush I draw a contour, and with the white brush I fill it inside, like a children's coloring. So far everything is simple, right? There will be a large fallen tree. This will help close the left side of the scene. Under the figures there will be a small backwater from the stream flowing past, as if the victim was caught while quenching thirst. Now you can make a mess without fear of losing the contour. I start working with color from the dark areas, from the background of the scene and earth below the figures. At this stage it makes no sense to pay great attention to detail. Of course there in the dark are hidden an infinite number of little fallen branches, roots and stones. To draw all this you could spend many years, it all depends on your desire. But since in my picture it does not play a big role, for the time being I just cover everything up with a cultural mess. I do not mix specific colors. I just squeeze a little red from the tube for an atmosphere of red light and blood, a bit dark brown and ochre for roots and ground, and white with a low covering power, in case you need to create brighter areas. I drown everything with linseed oil to dilute the pigments and make them ready for use. And I mix them together a little to create the midtones. At this stage, you can safely use a variety of tools to create an interesting texture. For example, on this roller for painting walls, I pulled an inner tire from a bicycle. Now it is not absorbing and when used, creates an interesting marks like a printing press. Or, for example, a rubber scraper for leveling plaster walls, in which I made incisions with the blade, making it look like a soft comb. I use it to scrape off excess paint on the canvas while leaving behind the nice plowed furrows. I add the color of the earth to the places of the figures, which in my view will be covered with dirt. The hooves of an animal kicking the ground in agony. The arms and legs of a predator moving through the forest on 4 limbs. Or maybe he was lying in the mud with his whole body to create a protective layer from mosquitoes and a hot midday sun. I throw only indications of complexity. Here is shadow, here is light, small tweaks with a gentle stroke. And keep in mind that the farther away objects are from the viewer, the less contrasting colors you need to use. This will help create the illusion of depth. This dirt tree trunk already interacts closely with the compositions, and is under direct light, so you need to pay more attention to it. The wooden flesh under the bark should look expressive. Same applies to broken stumps of branches and holes eaten by larvae. The areas where the hard shadow of the object falls. Now we are no doubt putting the blackest black, like Duncan Hill's coffee. You can make the shape of the tree more visible by adding light reflected from the ground to the back of the trunk. The farther the trunk from the center of the picture, the more it disappears into the void. Finally, I'm done with boring stuff, now begins the fun. The main figures and their emotions. I start perhaps with the victim. It's easier because it's covered with fur. It makes certain freedom to make mistakes, unlike bare skin. Of course you don't need to draw every hair. Gradually, starting with dark areas, you lay the right color and just add the sharp tuft here and there for contrast. The victim is a metaphorical modern man. I thought for a long time whether it is necessary to give the victim's face human emotion. What kind of emotion should it be? Horror or apathy? It seems to me to be eaten alive is the most terrible death. But at the same time, everyone knows the existence of people who enjoy the pleasure of self-destruction to such an extent. Starting at first by eating their burgers and mailing pubic hair to the object of adoration by mail, they end up finding on the internet a businessman who practices cannibalism on a weekend and organizes a hellish feast with himself as the main dish. Of course, in the process you get an adrenaline rush that dulls the pain, but it seems to me that people, unlike animals, can actually enjoy it because of some strange deformation of consciousness which replaces the psychological satisfaction from placing your flesh in another person during sexual contact to filling with yourself another person's stomach. The head of the victim seemed to me the weakest link in the picture. It was not even clear that the victim is a man. Then I realized what was missing. Horns! Male deer should have horns. Plus, this branch attributive ungulates is also a symbol of husbands with cheating wives. This fits perfectly with this whole male-female thing that is going. And finally our matron, Femlagomorpha Carnivora. Choosing rabbit face, I was inspired by a toy that I received at Easter. Ever since I saw her, I wanted to portray an anthropomorphic rabbit. They also seem to be known for the lack of emotion. I thought that it would be fun to draw an analogy with a metaphorical woman. They both hide behind beautiful soft fur, but have you ever seen the naked rabbit? It's terrifying. All about cat lovers is a real thing. By the way, some people see in the picture that she's simply sad about dying animal. It's not at all a predator. Yeah, she knows how to make a good impression. I add blue specks to her mouth to correct this misunderstanding. For a start, with a pale skin tone, we lay the foundation so that the surface is nice and moist. You need to work on the skin in layers, gradually accumulating the desired shade with translucent solutions. I still do not quite comprehend this skill. On my palette, titanium white and light shades based on it with the addition of a small amount of cadmium yellow and red light, earthy shades with burnt sienna, and warm black from a mixture with cobalt blue. Surely I would become a good makeup artist. Sprinkle thin hair with a black powder, make juicy lips with lipstick, narrow the nose and forehead with a foundation, bring up eyes for expressiveness. Nah, I'm joking. People would leave me looking even worse than they came. While the canvas is still moist, a few individual hairs with a thin brush. I guess it's pretty hard to regularly wash your hair in the wilderness without soap and warm water, even if you have human hands. Now the insides of the torn neck. Tendons, veins, subcutaneous fat. See? This yellow is a fat. I already feel how many problems I will have because of this part when trying to put a picture in public museums. Sign this shit and peace out.